What a moment to find fulfillment. What a moment to find life in fullness. What a moment to find life in fortune. And what a time to find freedom. I'm interested in bringing ideas and concepts and truth and principles that help us live life from fullness. I interact with a lot of people. I engage with top leaders, everybody, and I found out we don't do life from fullness. Of course, fundamentally, um, it's because we are under the sun, and everybody that under the sun is broken because the world was it's a broken place, it's a cracked place, and that's why we need the light, the sun, to get into the crack. So the crack is basically to allow the healing of the sun to come in, the energy of the sun to empower us, so they can fill us back into fulfillment. And so everyone that you see here under the earth is cracked, is needy, is wanting, is desiring, and they can't find peace in a broken heart. They can't find wellness in an impure mind. And that's why you see, if you don't have a sound mind, the world will return back to you on sound mind. And today we're going to be diving into something that we neglect but has a deeper consequences. And that's why I want you to invite anybody who is under stress, who has a mental storm, mental turmoil, mental disorder. I'm not talking about medical one, but I mean who stress, abuse has affected. Will be able to challenge certain norms and certain ideologies and knowledge. And the reason why we bring this is because majority of us have what they call package knowledge. Package knowledge is when um, like you have a product and that product is packaged, but the inner connection is quite different. Has you just see that when you remove that package, it is open. It has no foundation of its own. So a lot of us have a knowledge, and I mean the deeper scripture said, "My people perish for lack of knowledge," meaning that everything that you're suffering, everything you're going through, every mental stress that you have, every mental turmoil, every mental confusion, every mental insufficiency is as a result of lack of knowledge. And I've always said in this corner that every knowledge that you have that doesn't give you access to full life, give you access to fulfillment, to freedom and fortune, you need to discard it. It's time to upgrade that knowledge and move it from packaged knowledge to light knowledge. What is light knowledge? Any knowledge that you acquire that is not transformative, doesn't have the capacity to renew your mind, to alter your belief system, to reinvent your perspective and increase your length of life. Any knowledge that has no capacity to influence your thought patterns, readdress the thought patterns, and reaffirm or restructure your belief system, because we say that your belief is what creates a reality. To change any reality, change the belief system that sustains it. So even your mental worriness, even your mental storm is as a result of lack of knowledge. So by the time you upgrade your knowledge, you upgrade your mental capacity, your mental strength, your mental fortitude, your mental resilience, your mental clarity, your mental balance, and your mental stability that is grounded, that is well centered, will begin to dictate and filter in external triggers. A lot of us are also what we call passive consumption. You know, when people just stay, well, for 1 second, the next thing, they're on their digital world. They are consuming without intelligence, without purpose. That means like you have what they call the distorted attention. And distorted attention where you are in autopilot. That autopilot that you are controlled by your impulses. Some other day I'm going to talk about like impulse control. But because a lot of us live out of impulse, that's the automatic life. That's why you're doing reaction. So what we want to be able to do also, after package knowledge, I'll talk about impulsive consumption. We want to be able to look at indulgence, what we call unwise, unintelligent indulgence. What is unintelligent indulgence is when people affect you without your consent. Because you see, when you're in reactive mood, you're acting outside your consent. Because what is consent? When people do not respond from the authentic self, from their core, from the value, from the principle, then you are not the one. That's what they call unintelligent, unwise indulgence. Every reaction. In fact, every time you said, oh, don't affect my mental health, you're losing yourself to external world. These three foundations: package knowledge, any knowledge that has no transformative effect, that affects your inner landscape, that build your mental resilience and give you mental capacity to be able to filter in external triggers, is not knowledge. Impulsive consumption, where you lack the control, you lack the discipline, you have not set up a standard. So fundamentally, these three things, check about it. That's what impacts your mental health. And if you understand it, then what it does is that it gives you the second stage. I like to build these things, so when I build them, you understand and review where you fall in the category where you are. So what it does that, you see, let me tell you. When you said you are affected by people's attitude, opinion, expressions, what fundamentally, the chief cornerstone of what you lack is discipline. Discipline, self-control is so powerful. So if you don't have discipline of the mind, what you'll be subjected to is mind control. And so mental health is hinged on the stability of your mind, ability to own your mind, ability to connect with your mind and respond from your mind. That's when you have, like typically say, we have the mind of Christ. The mind of Christ is when you operate from the divine mind. Now, the divine mind contains divine blueprint. We're going to be expanding this. The divine blueprint contains divine intelligence. Divine intelligence contains divine enablement. And that divine enablement is how you respond. It requires a whole lot of discipline, not to have mind control, but to have a mind connection. So mind control means that you are subject to mental torture. And I'm not speaking grammar. What is it? It's typical of when he said, a man who hear my voice and obey the voice, become the voice. It's like a man who built his house upon the rock. So when you have a rock mind, its flexibility means it has a capacity and the resilience and the mental texture to be able to deal with all the adversity, whether it's wind, whether it's whatever it is, the turmoil cannot affect you, because you see, external turmoil cannot affect a peaceful mind. Of course, scriptures are so powerful. He said, He gives perfect peace to them whose mind stay. Stay means connection, deeper connection. So it requires discipline to consistently observe, watch, and become a participant to the flow of life. If you're not participating, then you are being controlled. But when you participate, that's what they call deliberate and intentional living. And this corner, what we want you to do is to bring you to a higher life, is to challenge status quo and to redefine the standard of life. So today we're going to be talking about, the next discipline. Discipline is so powerful. Now, discipline brings you to what they call control. A man needs to be able to establish barriers and controls. If you don't establish control, what is controlled as standard? Like typical of when the enemy come like a flood. When somebody speak language that does not align to your preference, to your agreeable standard, what happened? It caused a trigger. That's what they call external triggers. And when you get into that flow, it means that you are not disciplined. If you are disciplined, you create a control, knowing that this is a barrier and this is my central point. This is my filter. So it filters it. Because why? You know that everybody that is going to speak are going to speak from their preference, from their broken place, from their need, from their aspiration. And what is your own aspiration? What is your own need? If my need is to be stable, peaceful, tranquil, calm, and that's my standard. Another person who do not have the evolutionary process that I have gone through to get spiritual, mental maturity is likely going to speak from the immature place, and he's representing, because say out of the abundance of the heart, they must speak it. So you see, if you don't have discipline, if you don't have control over your mind, over your thought, over your feeling, over your perspective means definition, and that's how you are infiltrated, and that's why you are imprisoned, that's why you are affected. So if you have discipline, you have control. The next thing is sacrifice. Sacrifice is so powerful. What is sacrifice? Is surrendering. What is sacrifice? Is accepting what it is and surrender to a higher level. Not resisting, not even rejecting, nor resenting, but acceptance, radical acceptance. Meaning that I've accepted that you have spoken, whether it's your boss, whether it's your father, whether it's your friend, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your boyfriend, whether it's your girlfriend, whether it's your siblings, whoever. Once you have this structure, that you know that you have discipline, then you have control over your thought, over your feeling, over your actions, over your perspective, over your belief. Then what it does, sacrifice. Sacrifice is not be self-centered, but of course Christ-centeredness. And Christ-centeredness is where we are grounded. That gives us equilibrium. That gives us, sense of self and sense of security. And when you get into that sense of self, you've been able to understand. It's part of what we'll be breaking down tonight, so that you can live in fullness, in wellness, in wholeness, in beauty of the heart, in peaceful disposition, in fortune. Your energy level is so balanced that you're movable, you're not offended. And once you are not offended, everything works for you. So mental health is subject to offense. And we're saying that if nothing moves you, everything moves for you. So today we're going to be dealing with how can I live in fullness? How can we live in fullness? Because if you don't live in fullness, you're going to live in partiality. And fullness is an inclusive living where judgment are suspended, and you internalize and utilizes every experiences for your fullness. You can't say that you're living in fullness by doing a selective life, because you know and we know that there's height, there's beneath, there's left and right, there's cold, there's hot, there's peace, there's war, in according to what Ecclesiastes said. So let me read it again in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. And when we lay this foundation, you begin to modify your mental state. Because you see, your mental state is so powerful. And you need to understand your mental state. Because the condition of your mind will determine the projection of that mind. And it's the projection of that mind that returns back to you as what they call the mirror effect. So Ecclesiastes chapter, I love this because I'm excited about full life. I'm excited when I live comprehensive life. I'm excited when I live inclusivity. I'm excited when I live in fortune. And fortune is not material-faced fortune, because you can have all the money, the comfort, but you don't have the contentment. And you don't have the fullness of life. Because you see, you're terrified. And a typical of what they say, do not place your faith on wealth and the 8 treasures, where moth and all the cankerworm will come in and thieves will break into it. So it means that when you place your treasure on the heavenly realm, nothing can accept it. That's why when we talk about higher life, we're talking about heavenly realm. We're talking about higher consciousness. We're talking about that higher state of being, which is your divine self. But because you see, when people are seeking for comfort, they're apparently seeking for material thing. And there's no material position that can give you defense. None. Because all of them are fleeting. They're temporary. This one will come to pass. They are all changing in form, from one energy to another energy. But inclusivity means that I'm whole. I utilize all the components to my advantage, including what you call abuse. Abuse become an instrument of redirection, instrument of recalibration. And that's what we want to bring you, so that you are not weakened in your mind, helpless, living in this partiality, living in selective life, living in preferences. And those things that are the things that are impact on our health. But if you're like a tree planted by the rivers of water, you are strong. You bear fruit in all season. Bearing fruit in all season is not when it is high, you bear fruit. You bear fruit in low. You bear fruit in darkness. You bear fruit in light. Because those things are temporary. Light is temporary. Darkness is temporary. How do I internalize both of them for my own benefit? And that's what they call fuller life. How can you look at abuse and abuse is no longer abuse to you? How can you look at loss and loss is not? How can you look at heartbreak and heartbreak are no longer enemies, but they are allies? That are strengtheners, they are awakeners. How can you look at disappointment as a friend? I mean, you say, Patrick, are you crazy? Because we live in a selective life, that's not whole life. And if you don't live an inclusive life, you will not be able to move with joy, with gladness, with excitement, with fun. Because, hey, at the end of the day, everything is a mental story and a mental narrative. And that's really what plays in our fickle mind. So let me read Ecclesiastes chapter 3. A time for everything. There's a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from that all? I have seen burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in His time. In His time. So it means if he has made everything beautiful in His time, He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom that God has done from the beginning. Oh, I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. Meaning that if you don't live an inclusive life, you live in selective life, you'll be tortured. I've gone through a whole lot as a person. And you know what I do, and people are asking me, why are you so resilient in what you're doing, even when it seems like it's unproductive by human measurement? But of course, you cannot be enlightened. You cannot be a light worker and not carry a message. And the message means that you had come to that point where you have been comforted, you have been healed, you've been enlightened, you've been illuminated, you've been transformed. And it is just what it is to become an access with which to also encourage people, inspire people. Stir up people's mind that this is possible, that it's possible to live a fuller life where you're unoffended. It's possible to live in fortune. Fortune is meant where everything works for you. It's visible to find in a freedom. Freedom is where you are not being controlled. You are in connection. You have a deep connection to your essence, to your divinity, to your true self that cannot be broken, that cannot be insulted, that cannot be affected by what we call bad words. Because you live in a whole life. When I found this concept and reaching effect, go back to what I said, I began to destroy my packaged knowledge. And I began to seek the right knowledge that has a transformative effect. And once that change occurred within, you see your projection in life, your definition in life, your interpretation, your perspective become, like when the Bible says if your eye be full of light, your body will be full of light. Means full life. Means that there's no darkness that can unlock within any corner of your life, because you have the capacity to smoke them out because you are aware of who you are. That's no longer packaged knowledge. You're no longer to be impulsive consumer. Impulsive consumer is when your boss affects you. Say, I have mental issues. Oh, your spouse and people. Oh, distress in our country will give you mental health. You are impulsive consumer. That means you've allowed yourself without discipline, without control, without sacrifice, which is self-surrender. You see how they're all connected? So we want to be able to come to that state where we are living an inclusive life, because it's part of it. Because of course it's a man born of a woman. Few days, full of trouble. Full of trouble. But hey, my case is different. Why? I have learned, Paul say, I've learned to master the key of life. I know how to abound. I know how to abase. It means I'm unaffected by whichever zone I am in. So that's why if you put me in prison, hey, I'll write my books. I'll do my stuff, because you see, it's just a geographical location change. Okay, you cage me, you bring me to stillment, you bring me to not loneliness, but the place of loneliness, and that's where I connect to my true self. Because be still and know that I'm God. This is the inclusive living. Oh, you say I am broke. Brokenness is me that is a place of creativity, because I now have spaciousness, what I call inner spaciousness. And inner spaciousness, what does it do? Is a place of flow, because I've created a crack, a flow, where the grace of divinity will come to you and be able to walk with you. That's why most of the time people are visited when in their own moment. They now have a spark of life, what we call divine spark. Because now your heart is in a receiving mode. But otherwise you are chasing. And every time you chase, you distance. Inclusive living is what gives you access to fuller life. And that's what we call the abundant life. You see, if you live in selective life of preferences, of ideas, how people should treat you, people cannot treat you the way you think they will treat you, because they are broke. They are needy on themselves. That's why I see when people said, oh, I need somebody, I'm lonely, I need people to feel you. The people that want to feel you are also lonely. And so lonely people will always find lonely people. That's how it is. But when you're complete, you're only expressing. That's what they call the completeness, fullness of life. Because you are aware, you're conscious about it. When you are affected, you are not in full life. You don't have fortune. That's why I say, fortunate are, blessed are they, those who mourn, for they shall be filled. They're not really mourning. But in the physical, you think that they are mourning. Why? Because they are fortunate. It's like saying, I'm a blessed person. So you say that, am I only blessed when I buy a car? No. Am I blessed when I got a job? No. Am I blessed when I find a spouse? No. Am I blessed when I hit a visa? No. Blessed means I'm blessed. I'm also blessed when I'm ill. I'm blessed when they serve me breakfast. I'm blessed when the company is not working. I'm blessed when the profit does not add. I'm blessed when the ministry does not add up. I'm still blessed. It doesn't change it. Because those things are fleeting moments. Like he said, there's reason for everything. But he now said, I know that there's nothing better for people but to happy and to do good while they live. I'm going to be breaking down how to live in fuller life. It is not a concept, but it's a principle. And it's a truth. And we are saying, buy the truth and sell it not. Truth must be, you have to buy it, truth. Otherwise, you live in handout with what people give to you. There are people who are constantly quoting everybody. But who can quote you? Because you're not buying your own truth. Revelational knowledge comes from participation. It comes from digging deep into the vast ocean of divine knowledge That's why I said tapping into the divine mind. The divine mind contains principles and truth and fundamental cornerstones, blueprint that becomes divine intelligence. And when you're talking about as many as led by the Spirit of God, what does that mean? It's just that you are being led by divine intelligence. And that intelligence must be acquired. And it must not only be acquired, it must be transformative. It must have the capacity to mature you, to grow you. That's what they call personal growth. So today, fundamentally, what is, how do we get into fuller living, fortunate living, to live in freedom? The freedom means that nothing alters you. That's where they talk about the authentic self. That's where you live powerfully. That's where you live in meaning. That's where you live in purpose. That's where you live in compassion. And that's where you live lovingly. You see, this structure, authenticity, means that your true self must always, when people say they have integrity, and you get angry, or somebody can impact your mental health, you don't have integrity. Because your mind has not been standardized. There's no discipline of your mind. There's no controlling your mind. And there's no sacrifice. These three key is the access to true freedom, fuller life, fortunate life, and to live in freedom. So today we're talking about how do you live in fuller life? Fuller life means that you're not subtracted. You cannot be diminished. You're unoffended. You're unaffected. Patrick, are you in this world? It requires training, mental training, capacity development. People don't learn nature. There's no amount of wave that affect the ocean, because they are part of the ocean or the wave. But when you live in separation, that's the beginning of sorrow. So every time you separate, you create separation, means that you are not living in whole. How can wave intimidate the sea? The sea is part of the wave. After a while, it will come back to the wave. So all this boisterous thing about mental health is because of separation. Separating yourself from the divine self, because the divine self has the capacity. That's why I say, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. And one of the strongest scripture, let me read it, is in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 27. 25, verse 27. Listen to this. I love it. 26. Let me read it in TPT, maybe. When lovers of God gives in, what it means gives in, when you consistently say, this thing is affecting my mental health, you are not operating or aligning to the requirement of lovers of God. It's the lovers of God. When a lover of God gives in and compromise with wickedness, it is compared to contaminating a stream with sewage or polluting a fountain. Let me read it in another way. Good news. Look at it. It said, when a good person, I wake up every morning and say I dwell in goodness and in prosperity. It becomes a cornerstone upon which my mental frameworks are standardized. And that is what I call my operating system. Operating system, and I dwell in goodness. I see myself good. My thoughts are good. My feelings are good. My perspectives are good. My feelings are good. My decisions are good. It says, a good person who gives into someone who is evil reminds you of a polluted spring or a poisoned well. Meaning that your mind has already been poisoned to be able to identify with poison externally. And that's what happened to mental health. Whew. How did I get this far? I seek knowledge. And I seek truth. When you seek the truth, that's to say you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You see how we get into the place of freedom, fuller, fortunate, and fulfillment. You can't have a fulfilled life when you are broken. It's so powerful. Look at it. A good person. So you're a good person who gives into somebody who is evil, reminds you of a polluted spring or a poisoned world. They have poisoned your world. And that's actually what mental disorder means. Or you say somebody's affecting me, my mental health is affecting you, allowing your world, that means discipline, control, and self-sacrifice to be penetrated by an external poison. You're too powerful to be controlled by words. You're too powerful to be controlled by heartbreak or disappointment. You're too powerful. I talked about what they call distorted self-image. But today, let's break it down. What will help us to live a fuller life? And it's a concept that has not been taught for too long. I'm going to break it down. And we have two things that will lead us into that. You know that every time you said, I'm affected by words, two things present itself. And people say they have an excellent spirit. An excellent spirit can never be polluted because there's a discipline, there's a control, and there's a sacrifice that protect and filter their worlds. They can't stream from that polluted place. And it's possible. It's true knowledge. Acquired knowledge that transforms you. If we don't, that's what the Bible said very strongly. What does it always talk about the Bible? I'm a child of God and believe it's my belief. I can help you. And it's principle based. It's a renew your mind. You can't renew your mind with an old opinion. And I said that there are three things that you must never be contented with. Your opinion. Opinion means that if you continue to run the same opinion about abuse, about mental effects, it means that you have not acquired a superior knowledge. When the superior knowledge comes, you begin to redirect opinion. Never be contented with your opinion. Never be contented with your opinion. Never be contented with their character. Let me tell you, poor character, it is what people have because they do not have mental resilience. They don't have mental structure. They do not have mental strength to be able to deal and outwit external triggers. Because why? Everything is about character. Character. And now, don't be contented with spirituality. In fact, I say it honestly. The Bible said, if you faint in the days of adversity, your strength is small. You have a small knowledge base. No wisdom. Wisdom means definition and interpretation. It means that you are interpreting from a lower life, not from a higher life, that have been designed carefully through the spiritual world. That's why it's abide in me and my words abide in you. Because the word that abide in you control your emotion, control your feeling, control your perspective, how you see. So these three things are fundamental. It will lead you to a very solid mind structure. Don't be contented with opinion. Consistently renew your mind. Read, study, pray, be still, reflect. We're going to go in that. Don't be contented with character development. And don't be contented with your spirituality. Because the deeper you go, the more formidable you have, the more special you become, the more lighter you become. And it's in that lighter mood that you're unaffected. Because when you're occupied, you are heavy. And once you are heavy, you are easy prey. You can't move. The flexibility of your mind cannot interact inclusivity. So there are two fundamental things that will lead you to a fuller life, to a fulfilling life, to a fortunate life, and to a life of freedom. Two things. Number one is thoughtfulness and thoroughness. Thoughtfulness and thoroughness. Thoughtfulness is a power tool and thoroughness. If you see a man that is stable, if you see a man that is consistent and steadfast, if you see a man that is engaging, unaffected, thoughtfulness and thoroughness. You see, thoughtfulness and thoroughness is the cornerstone of a fortunate life, a fuller life, a life of freedom and a life of fulfillment, where peace transcends beyond material happenings. You see, every man that have significant, that you see stable, confident, audacious, has incorporated thoughtfulness and thoroughness. When you become thoughtful and thorough, no mental destabilization. It's not going to happen. It drives you to deeper experience, not shallow experience. Because now you are, I wish I was thoughtful. I wish I was very thorough. And when I look at the thing that I've suffered, if I was a bit patient to be thoroughness, investigate, deeper reflection, deeper consideration, a bit patient, and be thorough and thoughtful, my God, not only you acquire one of the most brilliant mind, your sense of self, your higher awareness, your higher consciousness, your inner beauty will be so strong that nothing external can ever penetrate into it because you're formidable. Malish. You see, thoughtfulness and thoroughness will give you what they call alignment to values. A man was a salesman, was not thorough, was not thoughtful, was only concerned about reward to close out a deal. And he get into the place, he's more he's all he wants to talk about, this product, there was no intelligence because it lacked thoughtfulness, and until he wasn't making real sales. And he got to a master and he said, really, I'm frustrated. All my effort. He said, do you want me to help you? It's okay. Sit down. How thoughtful are you? He said, what does it mean? How thoughtful are you? But I'm a very analytical person. I put over there, how thoughtful are you? It's almost going to cause problem for him. He said the root of stability is in thoughtfulness. As a man thinketh, so he is. But it's not just about critical thinking, analytical thinking. How thorough is your thinking? Because thorough is able to think about consequences, aftermath. The beauty of life is in these two things, thoughtfulness and thoroughness. If you are going to excel in anywhere as a leader, as a parent, in relationship, in your civic obligation, thoughtfulness and thoroughness. And I think this is what people in this part of the world lack, these two things. And when you get into that zone and that frequency and you begin to vibrate in that energetic flow of thoughtfulness and thoroughness, a lot begin to change. What it does is begin to find alignment. You begin to, of course, find awareness, alignment, and embodiment for expression. You will not be expecting. So the problem of mental impact is expectation. What thoroughness and thoughtfulness does is that it closes it from expectation, expression, because you know that you are rewarded by what you say and do, not what is said and do, because I have no control about it. So people are going to, am I going to be a floor mat? No. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall. Blessed are the peaceful, for they shall be called the sons of God. Thoroughness will give you alignment to value system. Now, you see, when people say they're authentic, but you ask them, what's your value system? You say kindness. When you react out of anger, you are not thorough, you're not thoughtful to align your actions and feelings to kindness. Because when you become kind, there's something it does. Non-judgmental, radical acceptance, non-resistance. That's what we'll talk about. Discipline, control, and sacrifice. Sacrifice is the ability to modify your feeling, to subject it in alignment to your value system. And it will come through thoroughness and thoughtfulness, which is consideration. This is classic. So he talked about alignment. He talked about, and you see, what he does is to give you mental resilience. And resilience means integrity. You cannot say you're a person of integrity without mental resilience. Resilience means restraining you. That's where discipline comes again. You see, that's where control comes in again. You now see that's where self-sacrifice comes in. Because the sacrifice, what means sacrifice? Surrendering to your value system, to the source. That what have I hid in my heart that I might not sin? What does that mean? So that I can align and become integral part of the world. That's why it's called inclusive living. That's where fuller life comes in. Of course, what he does is that it continually reinforces positive influence. Without thoughtfulness, without thoroughness, you're likely going to be influenced outside. And that's why people are giving into their light. Because they're a candle, they can't light. Why? They've allowed negative influence. So you see, you can't say you're living a fuller life, fortunate life, life of freedom and fulfillment by not having a positive influence. But once you allow negative influence to come in, you're not an influencer, you're being influenced. And it's as a result of lack of thoughtfulness. Because see, when your boss, when anybody that you call enemy or you call oppressor, it's because you're not thoughtful about it. If you're thoughtful and thorough, you realize that the person is projecting his or her wound. And your own wound must be disciplined and subject to your positive influence. And the other one is personal standardization. People don't live in standard. And how I know that people don't live in standard? Go and check their offices, check their car. You will enter a man's car, a woman's car. You will see whether there's thoughtfulness and thoroughness in that house, in that car. In fact, the root of productivity and the root of engagement is in these pure things. Thoughtfulness and thoroughness. If you're thorough, nobody can influence you negatively. It's now because we're not thorough, we don't think through. We're not thorough, and that's why we're affected. And that's why we're impacted negatively. Of course, that's a consequence. The consequence of not being thorough and thoughtful is negative impact. And what's the root of that is patience. Because say without patience, with patience you possess your possession. That means that because we are not patient enough to give into quality thinking or quality, we can't be able to, you can't be thorough. Thoughtfulness seems like the chief cornerstone of building and nurturing deep meaning connection to yourself and to others. And that's the beauty of this. And how do we start reclaiming our life to find ourselves in a fortunate place, to find ourselves in fuller life, to find ourselves in freedom and in fulfillment? It starts from self-awareness. The root of thoroughness. Now, what is self-awareness? Self-awareness is when you observe the tight in your chest. It's an indication that you are being impacted, you're being influenced. You're not the one influencing. You have left your alignment to your core values, to what is important to you. Like that, they say that a good person who compromises is like a rotten fountain or a polluted stream. You have been polluted. So the root of thoughtfulness and thoroughness is on self-awareness. Self-awareness is ability to understand your weakness, your strength, your triggers, the condition of your heart. And it's so powerful. And self-awareness comes from the devotion and dedication to deeper search of knowledge, and not packaged knowledge that creates impulsive consumption and unwise engagement. No, indulgence. But now you are aware when those triggers come, when that emotion surge. You just ask yourself, acknowledge that there's a surge. That means that there's a misalignment between what is coming from outside and what is outside. It is that point you give it a thought that, you see what, I can't control what is coming, but I can control my feelings, I can control my thought, I can control my belief about what it is, and I can control, and that's what they call inclusive living and not separation. And you see, it's this integration that makes you solid, that you're unavailable to offense and abuse. Self-awareness will create a very strong self-regulation. So every time you say I'm prone my mental health, you have not established, you are not self-aware. When people talk about emotional intelligence, the root of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. And self-awareness is when you are becoming aware of your thought and also being aware of other people's thoughts. That's why it's inclusive, fuller life. You can't live in fullness without being inclusive. It means I'm not just thinking about myself, I'm thinking about the others. Which is what they call defensive driving. You're not just thinking about yourself, you're thinking about other persons. You see the sequence of this. The root of fuller life, I keep emphasizing, is thoroughness. Thoroughness and thoughtfulness. So self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-present. Self-present is something like, when you talk about personal power, a personal power is when you know that you have an inherent built-in capacity of choice. So you are aware, you have regulated yourself through discipline, through control, and through sacrifice, which is surrendering to your value system. That's alignment to your value system. That is where you become present. And to be in present, what you need to to get into thoughtfulness and thoroughness is still. When you become still, be still and know that I'm God. It doesn't take, it could be anything. I have my rope. I have what I call my steel rope. Every time you see me on my steel rope, what am I doing? I'm bringing presence. It could be anything. Because once you pause and be silent, you are connecting to your deeper self. And that's where deep reflection comes in. Because now you are reflecting, and that the moment you start reflecting, the consequences, that means you're thinking and you're being thorough. So you see, self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-presence, the power of presence at every moment will connect you to your authentic self and connect you to your personal power. Your personal power is the ability to make a choice that aligns to your value system. Because presence means, can I have that quiet moment to make a choice, whether to allow this thing to impact on me or to influence me or a norm. And that's a place of norm. People call it indifference. It's different from indifferent. It's not like you're running away, but you're connecting to your true self through your personal presence, through personal regulation and personal awareness. You see, this key structure will guarantee you thoughtfulness. And for whatever that has affected you, you were not very thoughtful about it, and you were not thorough. So to recapture your life, to reclaim your life, to put your life back to your essential self, is to begin to practice self-regulation, self-awareness, and self-presence. Of course, which is the cornerstone that warehouses thoughtfulness and thoroughness. And of course, fundamentally, you realize that this fulfillment is not far-fetched, it's within you and not what outside you. I hope that I've made some insight about it. If you're going to be more productive in your school, in your academics, your marriage and relationship just lack whatever you're suffering. If you can bring quality thoughts and presence and regulation and awareness, you come into freedom, you come into fortunate, you come into fulfillment, and you come into fullness of life. I welcome you to fullness of life through thoughtfulness and thoroughness, to a higher life where life will not do you, you do life. Thank you so much. I'm expecting feedback from you so that we continue to live a higher life where we dwell in goodness and in prosperity, knowing that we're unoffended by life because we live an integrated life that leads us into life of fullness, fulfillment, freedom, and fortunate. See you next time.